Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us tonight for our 2+2 model webinar. My name is Basha. I'm an Education USA advisor at the US-UK Fulbright Commission in London. And today we're joined by Katie Sivanach. Sorry if I butchered that, Katie,
It's okay.
from St. Paul's College in Minneapolis. And she'll go through the webinar for us tonight. The webinar is being recorded, and we'll also take some questions at the end. But if you have questions during the webinar, you could pop them in the Q&A box that you can access at any time. So Katie, off to you.
Great, thank you, Basha. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For me, it's midday. I'm talking to you from St. Paul, Minnesota. So it's about 12:30 p.m. here, but I know it's evening for most of you. So yeah, I'm here to talk to you today about the 2+2 model. So that's a term that we use for a community college and then transferring to a four-year university. So Basha, could you go to the next slide? Thank you. So this is kind of what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about what are community colleges in the US, the 2+2 model itself, so what that means, what that is, how to plan a successful transfer. So if you decide that the 2+2 model is something you want to look further into, communicating your plans at a US visa interview for a student visa, and a big one, taking advantage of OPT work authorization in between a community college and four-year university. And then we'll have some time for questions. So some of those points may not be clear yet, depending on how familiar you are with the 2+2 model, but we'll get into some of those topics. So just wanted to share a little bit about me. My name is Katie Sivanach. I'm the International Student Coordinator and Advisor at St. Paul College. We are a community college. We're a two-year community and technical college in St. Paul, Minnesota. I've worked with international students here for about 2 years, but I've worked in higher education in the US, specifically with students at community colleges looking to transfer in some capacity for about 5 years. So it's a topic I'm really passionate about, helping students kind of understand what the 2+2 model is, how you can save money on your education and just get a different kind of experience for higher education in the US through starting at a community college. So I'm especially passionate, of course, about supporting international students to take advantage of that in addition to our domestic students. All right, next slide. This is just a picture of St. Paul College, so you all can kind of visualize where I am right now. It is a really nice day today, so it does kind of look like that right now. But that's downtown St. Paul, and then right below is our campus. So that is where I'm talking to you from today. And just a little bit about St. Paul College. We've had over 250 international students come through from about 60 different countries over the past 3 years. So our international student program is rather new. We kind of started right before the pandemic, but we've ushered a lot of students through and have helped them, take advantage of this 2+2 model and transfer. Okay, next slide. So what are community colleges? These slides kind of go quick, but yes, sorry. So community colleges are, I'm going to speak to them in the context of the US, as a lot of other countries sometimes have their own definition of a community college or different structures. But in the US, community colleges are typically affordable public higher education institutions that generally lead to an associate degree, certificate, or diploma. So an associate degree can sometimes be known as a 2-year degree, or yeah, 2-year degree is one of the biggest interchangeable with associate degree, and that's kind of where this 2+2 model comes from. I'll talk about some of the nuances of that in a little bit. The community colleges in the US are usually open enrollment for students who graduated secondary school or high school. And what that means is that they are, they don't look for what your GPA equivalent was in high school. They're not looking at ACT scores or SAT scores for admission. To be admitted to a community college, any student really just has to have completed secondary school or high school, and you'll be able to take classes at a community college. So it can be a good option if you're looking to kind of get grades up or get a GPA. If you're looking for some more competitive four-year colleges, that that can totally be an option. And they're usually smaller in size than four-year universities. So the campuses are usually smaller. It's usually going to be like 1 or 2 buildings versus a full campus. And the population size of students is going to typically be smaller. So a lot of times what you'll find at community colleges is, in comparison to some bigger public universities, like I'm thinking of one of our neighbors, the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, which is a fantastic school. It's my alma mater. I went there, but a lot of those courses in the first couple of years are big lecture halls with can be up to 400 students. So you're going to get a smaller class size a lot of time at community colleges. And I'm noticing a hand raised in the chat, but I think we can just wait for questions until the end, or you can put them in the Q&A and then we'll get to everything. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about what the 2+2 model is that we've talked a little about community colleges. So the 2+2 model essentially is taking the 2 years at a community college plus another 2 years at a 4-year university, and then combining those together and you earn a bachelor's degree. So 2 years or about 60 credits at a community college will generally lead to an associate degree. And just going back to what I mentioned about the 2 years, it can sometimes be more or less than 2 years, depending on what type of program you're doing, what type of student you are, and how many credits you want to take per semester. So if we're thinking of 60 credits is an associate degree, if you took 15 credits each required semester as an international student, you'd complete that in about 2 years. If your program requires more credits or you take fewer credits each semester, it's going to be a little bit more than 2 years. So just something to keep in mind when we're talking about the 2+2 model. Generally, it's just a good way to phrase it to keep things simple. But yeah, some majors like nursing, for example, might have some specific prerequisite requirements. So we'll talk a little bit more about like planning a transfer down the line too. So a lot of big reasons why students are interested in the 2+2 model, this is both domestic students and international students, is just the cost effectiveness of it. Tuition at community colleges can often be significantly more affordable than some 4-year universities. And of course, it depends on the university. It depends on the location too, but here's just kind of a breakdown of what typically is a per year cost of tuition between a community college and a 4-year university. We can go to the next slide. And then this is the breakdown of for 4 years. So like the bottom part of the graph with the blue and the green. So the blue is looking at like if a student were to go to the University of Minnesota Twin Cities for all 4 years, that would be about the cost of tuition versus if those first 2 years in credits were completed at a community college, what the cost breakdown would be. So it is a really good way to save on your tuition and still earn that bachelor's degree from the 4-year university. So when you transfer in credits from a community college, they're transferring to that degree program. So you still end up with a bachelor's degree from, for example, the University of Florida, even if part of those credits were completed at a community college. And you can see there's some different fluctuation of costs too. Like there's not as much savings for a school that's 4-year school that's more affordable, maybe like the University of Minnesota Duluth. But the savings are pretty significant for a school like University of California, Berkeley, which has a pretty significant tuition rate. Okay. So how to plan a successful transfer. So the 2+2 model is great, but there is some planning and thoughts that need to go into this when you're thinking about doing a 2+2 model or starting at a community college and transferring. And that's one of the big things that I want everybody here to get out of this webinar is kind of some of those things that you need to be successful in making this happen for your educational journey. So a big one is knowing what your end goal is. And I put S in parentheses of know your end goal and end goals because you might not know exactly what it is you want to earn from a 4-year degree. But if you know that, then you have a little bit of a pathway to identify what some of your options are for transferring. So what I mean by this is, like, say you are a computer science student, you know you want to earn your bachelor's degree in computer science. You kind of want to work backwards from that. So you might want to look at what are the four-year schools you'd like to attend and earn your bachelor's degree in computer science from. What are some of the pathways that can get you to that degree? So I'm thinking in the context of Minnesota, like let's say you want to go to the University of Minnesota for computer science. Um, you might look at what their requirements are and what community colleges you can take some of those credits at. Um, if you're thinking about the University of Minnesota, for example, it's a pretty competitive program. So you might look at a couple different four-year school options. So you might look at the University of Minnesota, but you might look at some other schools like Metro State or some out-of-state schools that you're looking to earn your four-year degree from, and some community colleges that you can transfer credits from. Some other things like Bachelor of Science in Nursing, depending on the program, the four-year school might be more specific in the credits that they're going to accept for transfer. You might also look at what community colleges have guaranteed conditional admissions or transfer agreements with certain four-year universities. So working backwards from that perspective and looking at, we'll talk a little bit more about guaranteed conditional admissions, but if there are any transfer pathways or programs that can get you to ultimately where you want to go. And one thing I want to add too is that the 2+2 model can also be done if you aren't totally sure about what you might want to study at a four-year institution, and it can actually be really helpful in that sense. So if, for example, you know that you want to earn a bachelor's degree, but you're not totally sure if you would want to major in something like communications or sociology or more of a liberal arts field, you can still start at a community college and transfer those credits and earn what are called like liberal education or liberal arts credits to transfer over to a four-year university. And it can kind of be helpful to get your footing at a community college, see what subjects you're interested in, but still be making progress to what your end goal is. And this is probably the biggest advice I have, is to utilize your resources at both your community college and the schools you want to transfer to. A big area I've seen students get caught up in is assuming that everything is just going to transfer seamlessly to the four-year school and that no advising conversations are required. And that can be true for some programs that are set up specifically to transfer, but it is really important to utilize your academic or transfer advisor if you're at a community college, as well as the admissions team at the college you want to transfer to. And I can say from the perspective of an advisor at a community college, I love getting these questions early from students and having these conversations early. When a student comes in and says, here's the schools that I'm looking at, here are the programs, and let's make a plan to see, you know, what you're going to take at that community college to transfer over is super great. There is a resource called Transferology. In the US, it's an online database that kind of gives an idea of what credits are going to transfer from which schools. So you can put in like a course that you've taken at a community college and then a four-year school and see what the transfer equivalency is. It's pretty accurate. It's not a guarantee always, because sometimes program requirements might change at a four-year school or curriculum might change, but it is generally pretty accurate and can be very helpful for students to also plan out on your own, like an idea of what you might want to take to transfer. So that is definitely a tool that I recommend. So this is about guaranteed conditional admissions, and this is something that a number of different community colleges and four-year partner schools will do together, especially when it comes to supporting international students. So guaranteed conditional admissions it's a little bit of an oxymoron because guaranteed conditional is like kind of hitting up against each other. But essentially what it means is a student may apply to a community college, be admitted to that community college, and then identify a couple different partner four-year universities that have a guaranteed conditional admissions agreement with that community college. The student would receive full admission to the community college and guaranteed conditional admission to that four-year partner university. So they might indicate they require a certain grade point average to be completed at that community college. So for example, like complete at least 30 credits and a 2.0 GPA in overall and a C or better in these classes, like maybe English Composition 1 is a popular one. And the applicant receives 2 of those admission letters. So I'll talk a little bit about the visa interview, and I might have I probably should have adjusted the slides, but those 2 admission letters, so the one full admission to the community college and that guaranteed conditional admissions letter, having those together can be a really good way to help explain to a visa officer and a visa appointment for a US visa, kind of what your plan is in the US. Because it'll help explain, here you have this full admission to the community college, and here's directly from that four-year partner school what they want to see and plans to transfer. So that is something that can be very helpful. So it's worth asking at a lot of like community colleges admissions offices that you apply to what options they have, or if they have any guaranteed conditional admissions partners. So like these are just our guaranteed conditional admissions partners at St. Paul College. And these are just some of the schools, all of these are in Minnesota, that we have agreements with, but it doesn't necessarily mean that a student at St. Paul College would have to transfer to one of these schools, right? So kind of going back to transferology, you can really transfer credits pretty easily anywhere within the US and sometimes outside of the US. But within the US, as long as the school will accept those credits. So you can be pretty creative in how you want to define your 2+2 model, if that's something that you want to do. Okay. So communicating your plans in your visa interview. You want to jump forward? Yeah, perfect. So that guaranteed conditional admissions letter is a really easy way to do that. You only have so much time in your visa interview. It's like 1 to 2 minutes long. So just having those admission letters ready can be a really good way to describe your plans. Some of these transfer pathways. So maybe the schools that you've applied to don't have guaranteed conditional admissions options, but they do have some transfer pathways. Sometimes that information is available on the website that you can easily print out a program guide, or even just familiarizing yourself with what your plan is and what your goals are before you go into the visa interview. And knowing that it's going to be achievable is enough to communicate what your goal is, what your plan is. Okay, this one I'm excited about. So this is very specific to international students in the US, but I think it's something that does not always seem to be apparent to students who are looking to study in the US and do this 2+2 model. And it's the OPT work authorization between community college and a four-year university. So you can go to the next slide. Perfect. So what OPT work authorization is, just as an overview, is it's a 1 year of work authorization that all F1 international students are eligible for after completing a program of study. It's eligibility, the way it works is that students are eligible after each higher degree level. And I'll explain that a little bit in future slides. But essentially, so a student who is doing the 2+2 model, if they complete an associate degree or some type of program of study at the community college, they're eligible to apply for 1 year of OPT work authorization after completion of that degree program. And then that renews at each higher degree level. So if you use that 1 year of OPT work authorization, work in your field of study for 1 year, you can do that again after you complete the bachelor's degree. So there's a little graph that we'll get to in a second, but a big distinction of that is this eligibility at each higher degree level. So a student who is starting at a four-year college or university and completes a bachelor's degree is eligible for 1 year of OPT. They're not eligible to go back to the associate degree level or lower level and complete a year of OPT. So it's a little bit like if you don't use it, you lose it a little bit. But it's certainly an advantage of especially students who are looking to get that work experience in your field of study in the US to make those connections with employers and get that experience in between this 2+2. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, there's a little graph. I kept trying to conceptualize like how do I make this like visual work? And this was the best way I could think to do it. But essentially, yeah, this two years, 60 credits, 1 year of post-completion OPT, another 2 years, earn the bachelor's degree, and then eligible for another year of post-completion OPT. So that's 2 years of work authorization opportunity in comparison to a student who only does the bachelor's degree and has that 1 year. And thinking about a STEM student, so there is an option starting at the bachelor's degree level for STEM OPT extension of 2 years. So those are eligible STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math programs. Next slide. Yeah, so here's a breakdown. So both options, 2+2, 4-year university only, both going to be about 4 years of study. With 2+2, you have this 2 years of OPT work authorization eligibility versus 4-year university only. There's only that 1 year plus potentially more with the STEM OPT extension. So a reason why this is important, I mean, I think just gaining experience is a great way to learn and earn some income in the US as well, but also just to help you build relationships with employers. So if attending college in the US and then doing an F1 and potentially transitioning to like an H1B. H1B is becoming very intense and competitive in the US, and building these relationships with employers and having as much time to do that as possible is a huge advantage. So this is a really cool benefit, I think, of the 2+2 model. Okay. Okay, so I guess that is the end of the formal presentation, but I would love to know what questions you all have about this
Yes,
topic.
please, thank you, Katie. Please pop any questions in the Q&A box. I have one question, if you don't mind. So some
Yeah.
students might not be familiar, like how much one credit equates to. So could you just give a breakdown of what a credit hour is, or what a class is worth in credit hours, just so we kind of give an overview of that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So 1 credit hour is typically um like 1 hour in the classroom, I believe, plus like 1 hour of work outside of the classroom. So an average class in US higher education is like 3 credits. Some are 4 credits, some are 5 credits, some might have like a 1 credit class, but 3 credits is pretty typical. So 60 credits, I am pulling out my calculator on my phone because I was not a math major, is about 20 classes. So that is usually what students are looking at. And per semester, that's usually like 4 or potentially 5 classes in fall and spring semesters. Is that helpful context?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And then can you just tell us how long your semesters are as well? Because I know they differ.
Yeah.
Well, I know they're different at universities, but for example, like in a community college, most of the semesters work similar in the US, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So there's certain schools that are on semester systems. Some are on a trimester and some are on a quarter system. I can say all of the Minnesota State colleges and universities, so like the community colleges and some of the public 4-year schools are on a semester system. So our spring semester runs January to May. Then there's a summer break. So international students are not required to enroll over the summer, but they can. Fall semester is like August to December.
Well, and then I had one more question, but it just
Mhm.
completely left my mind. It will come to me. But if anyone does
Okay.
have any questions, please pop them in the Q&A box. Just wait a couple minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Um, Can you just, I know we saw a picture of the campus, but I guess maybe this is for people that are interested in any like clubs or sports that
Mm.
they might join. Does your college offer that? Or obviously, I know community colleges are different sizes, etc. But can you just maybe talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think this is definitely one area where community colleges differ from some larger universities. We don't have any sports teams. So we're not involved in any like official sports leagues as far as like college sports go. We do have some student groups, so students can create their own student group. We have a number of different already existing groups. Like for international students, we have the Global Cultures Club. There's a gamers club, so they play video games. There's a math club. There's a couple other like identity-based student groups, but there's always the option for students to create their own student group, which could be a sports group. One really fun thing that a lot of colleges in Minnesota are looking at for the fall is there was a student at Minnesota State Mankato who had the idea to get some Minnesota international students at colleges together for a football tournament, like a US soccer tournament. So that is something that is potentially in the works for the fall that I think everybody is really excited about. Just getting everybody together to have some fun that way. So it's definitely something that's a little bit different than 4-year schools, but you can still find that community in different ways.
Yeah, great. We do have a question. Does the fee include accommodation?
Oh, it's a very good question. At St. Paul College, it does not. So, and that's the case for a lot of community colleges, is they might not have on-campus housing. Um, and that's a big difference from some 4-year colleges where you might live on campus or live in the dorms. A lot of community colleges won't have that same structure. So it is up to students to find their own housing around campus. Like at St. Paul College, we offer some resources, like here's some apartment options around campus or ways to look for housing. A lot of students will like live together, international students, so they might rent an apartment or a house together. But yes, it does not include living accommodation.
That also means that you might be able to save some money on that accommodation as well.
Right, yeah, it depends, yeah, on how expensive, it is at 4-year colleges. But yeah, it's up to you to find. So if you're okay with like living in a house with some roommates, which is a good experience in itself, I think you could get it pretty affordable.
And then I know some community college do this, but does St. Paul allow students to take classes at your partner 4-year universities whilst doing their associate's degree?
Yes, we do. It's another great question. It's called concurrent enrollment. So if there's like a class that a student really wants to take at like Metro State, for example, they could certainly take that and it would help fulfill for international students, there's this full course of study requirement in the US. It would help fulfill that full-time requirement and transfer it back. So that's another way to kind of like get started on some of those higher level credit requirements.
And then would they pay um, to the community college for that credit or those credits, or do they pay the fee to the 4-year university?
They would pay it to the 4-year university in most
Okay.
cases. So just directly as a
Yeah.
visiting student. Yeah.
Yeah. But at least it's a chance to actually take some of those classes, yeah, like you said, to fulfill some of the requirements that you might not have at the community college at that time.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's a good way to like try out that school too, to see if that's somewhere you might want to transfer to and how the experience is.
Oh, we got one more question. Okay, do you miss practical classes as there are less facilities?
Like practical kind of meaning more like hands-on
Yeah, yeah. So you
classes.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, I think obviously you would have like the big lectures at 4-year universities, and then
right.
most of them will have like another hour of the, like small in the
Yeah, like a
groups with,
lab.
yeah, yeah, or
Yeah.
like a lab or something like that. So does that happen at your college?
Yeah, that's a good question. It really depends on the major and the program, I think. So that is one thing to keep in mind with the 2+2 and transfer is sometimes like 4-year colleges might be a little bit more particular about like the major specific courses. They might want you to take them directly with them because they might have a specific structure, specific yeah, just like facilities that they want you to use on their campus. So they might prefer that if you're going to transfer credits, that you make it the more general education credits to transfer. I will say that we have some facilities at St. Paul College that are very specific to certain majors. Those majors end up being a little less transferable just because, again, they're so specific with the facilities. But like we have an automotive service technician program, for example. They have a whole like shop, like a car shop on our lower level where they do things. We also have like some very specific health science programs, so like respiratory therapy and surgical technology. We call it the simulation center upstairs. It's like mimics a hospital room, and there's different like technologies to simulate different this wasn't my specialty, so I don't know all the terminologies, but it's a pretty high tech area. But they're very specific to certain majors, so it really depends on what your focus is.
Yeah, I think it will vary. Just keep in mind that even with four-year universities, their facilities will vary university to university.
Mhm.
It would be the same thing with community colleges across the US that their facilities will vary, and it's what they some will specialize in certain areas. So like St. Paul has a, let's just say, a hospital.
Yeah.
And the other two-year colleges will not have that, but they might have something else on offer. So that's also important to kind of, like Katie mentioned, is to go backwards and start off what you would like to have your bachelor's in and see if the college, community college that you're thinking of applying has those facilities that will help you on with your four-year degree.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we'll give it a couple more minutes to see if there's any last minute questions. But in the meantime, Katie, can you tell us what's two of your favorite things for working at a community college?
Oh, yeah. Um, I really like the community aspect of it, to be honest. Like I know the community college is in the name, but because we're kind of small, and we're one building, there is a community feel to it. Like everybody kind of has a say in what's going on campus. Like we just recently not elected, we selected a mascot. We didn't have a college mascot for a long time, and it was a very like I really enjoyed how much of a community process that was. Like all students, faculty, and staff got to nominate who we wanted the mascot to be. They narrowed it down to 4 finalists, and then there was like a campaign for each of the mascot options. So we're now the St. Paul College Foxes, which is kind of fun. But just that, yeah, that whole process was fun to see everybody getting really invested in who we wanted our mascot to be, and everybody had some strong opinions, but
It's
um,
important. That's important.
it is important, yeah. Um, so that I really love. And one thing that's specific to St. Paul College, we have a culinary arts program. So there's our second semester students will do like on Tuesdays during the semester, they'll show off their like menu that they've been working on. So you can go, like anybody who's on campus can go and get really good food that they've been putting together. And that's really fun to just, yeah,
Oh,
get
that's
great
amazing.
food that
Yeah.
they've been working on. Yeah.
That's amazing. And then I know you mentioned this, but you're like in the city center or of St. Paul or
We're kind of right above downtown. So
okay.
like we kind of overlook downtown St. Paul. We're on it's called Cathedral Hill is the neighborhood because there's a giant like St. Paul's Cathedral that's right next to us, and they both kind of look downtown. And I always tell people like we're as close as you can get to downtown St. Paul without having to drive through it because it's kind of a pain to drive through. There's a lot of one ways and there's a lot of traffic. So um that's the sell point. At least people who are familiar with the Twin Cities is what I would
Yeah.
tell them.
No, that's great. I don't think we have any more questions. If anyone has any questions about the community college or how to apply to US University, I popped in our email into the chat box. So it's advising@fulbright.org.uk. Sorry. Katie, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to run this for us. It was very informative.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you so much for having me.
and the webinar will be available for you to view again, so you could see Katie's email address and her information if you are interested in attending St. Paul, or even if you have some questions about community colleges that she might be able to help you with. So, Katie, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope everyone on here has a great evening.
Yes, thank you so much, Basha. Have a good evening, and thanks for having me.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.